Hell no. Now that's better. This is your president, Ms. Entertainment, and welcome to the Power Hour. We're getting ready to kick this thing off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right. What's up, everybody? This is your girl, Ms. Entertainment. I am your president of the Real Ass People Society. So welcome to the Power Hour. We're live every Saturday at noon-ish sometime, somewhere. Most of the time noon. On Terradome Entertainment Radio, where we play the best hits from old school to new school hip-hop, R&B, and more. So go to terradomeentradio.com, click on the Listen Live button, or tune in on TuneIn or Live 365. And if you don't catch us live, you can catch the replays on terradomeentradio.com or on all your major podcast apps. And of course, I'm not in a place alone. Let me introduce my Chief Entertainment Officer, DJ Talented.
Yeah. What it do, people? It's your boy, DJ Talented, and I am in the building today. This is another good Saturday, and it's supposed to be 80 degrees this today. So, anyway,
Georgia weather.
Yes, Georgia weather. Anyway, my famous saying, I'm glad to be above it than under it. You dig?
All right. You gonna get something? Okay, number.
Go ahead.
And special guests, we have singer, songwriter, entrepreneur, author, podcast host, Miss Janishia Jones.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Girl, first off, I thought I did a lot. But looking at your list, I ain't doing enough. How do you do it all?
Well, my background as a performer is what led me into becoming more of an entrepreneur and learning more about the business side of the industry to empower myself. I went to school to learn more about music business and quickly realized, especially at the time, where we were having this change from physical to digital sales, that I would have a more lucrative and sustainable career on the back end. So I've been just pounding the pavement, learning as much as I can about a niche sector of the industry, rights and royalty management, or publishing, for those who may not be familiar with those terms. But having worked for some of the most successful music companies in the world, being empowered to start my own initiatives and to help the BIPOC community take ownership of their creativity.
I know a lot is definitely needed. So kudos and hot claps to you for taking that on.
Thank you.
Now, being a musician and classically trained, do you miss that side for us performing?
Sure. I mean, sometimes I feel like we're in a very interesting place in the industry now where artists are having to reconcile with how are they going to make money in a very dense and industry it's got a lot of competition, obviously. How do you set yourself apart? So I might miss the performance aspect of it. And I still do perform as a hobby, but as far as like putting myself on the stage and attempting to make a living as an artist, that's not something I'm really pursuing at the moment. And I will also say I just launched my record label, So Saucy Records. We're currently managing 3 emerging artists. So I still have a hand on the creative side, just not as the performer myself.
I get it. My daughter, she's classically trained. She plays the double bass. So she struggles with that artist slash, you still got to pay your bills.
Right, exactly. Well, part of it is knowing where the money is coming from as an artist as well. I think so many people focus on just streaming, and therefore we have this convoluted system where artists are just pushing out as many singles as possible and not really doing much to promote it outside of getting on playlists. I'm not sure if that's something that we'll be discussing further here, but I think once you start to realize there are other opportunities to make money in the industry, and really tapping into you can control your packaging so that you can actually make a living.
Okay. That's it. Like something happened there with your volume, but we're going to keep moving. So let's go ahead on and tap into that because I agree. Because I have a friend of mine, and for he's a producer, and this his goal is just to keep pushing music out, push music out, music out. Um, what are your thoughts behind that as far as what additional things that you should be doing as an artist, to get that steady stream income in? Because I know as artists we want to be heard, but it
Mhm.
still is a business side too because we still got bills.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think as an artist, you want to first see, first of all, who is your audience? Know your story first. Who are
Mm,
you as an artist? What sets you apart from other people? I think a lot of times artists really focus on their accomplishments and not necessarily those challenges that get them to where they need to be in life. And those are the things that people really connect to, are the challenges. So really tap into that, and then from those challenges, you'll be able to see who it is that you're marketing to, who's actually resonating with the music that you're creating. Once you do that, if you're a songwriter or producer, you obviously want to make sure that your songs are registered. This makes it easier for the larger ecosystem of the music industry to take advantage of knowing who the rights holders are of this music, so that they're looking to pitch it in different, film or television or games or other projects that they might be working on. They know exactly who to reach out to for approval of those rights and for those licenses. Obviously, you also want to tap into any kind of brand partnerships that you can. Obviously, as an emerging artist, you need a little bit more leverage to do that. But look for your local community for brand opportunities as well. And branding is really about like your personal image and your story. So just things that really tap into who you are as an individual, things that you're interested in, and that you can partner your messaging and build a collaborative audience with those brands. So that's another opportunity. Um, I think publishing is one of those places that a lot of people miss out on. Is they're not really sure. That that is a very lucrative sector of the business, and so they might, try to court the DSPs more than they do production houses or syncs and people who have access to those kinds of relationships. So the other obvious part about being an artist is actually performing. I can't tell you how many artists are like closeted artists. They create the music, but they're not outside like that. There's no way for their fans to really engage with them. And being on a stage performing is the best way to connect with your audience, connect with your fans. And you need to perform in order to make money in this business. It's one of the more, um, uh, that's one of the biggest places where an artist can make money in this industry is on the stage. So not only does it help you get your awareness out there and build your fan base, but it gives you like the chops to be an actual artist and a performing artist, not just someone who's creating music in their closet.
Now, you said a couple of things that I want to touch on. And one, let me start off with the challenges because this industry is not for the weak at all.
No.
And like you're saying, people get caught up in those dreams of making it. And sometimes that forces them to compromise things or ignore signs of that mental stress. And being that October 10th was recognized as the World Mental Health Day, I saw
Mm,
in your intro that I guess when you was being part of the last part of Bad Boy, you kind of had to pivot because of some mental, I guess, some
health
stresses.
issues.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that you was experiencing. So first, how is your mental health these days?
Well, it's a little bit, it's an interesting time in my life right now because I've transitioned into full-time entrepreneurship. So it's not less stress on my plate. It's way more than I've ever had as someone who's worked in the corporate world. So I'm being a little bit more intentional about creating a safe space for myself to kind of decongest, not always have to be on or performing as an executive, but really tapping into what I need in this moment. And so, I might take walks with my dog. I might, just meditate. I might journal, and that'll help me to kind of decompress. But the challenge that you spoke of is something I think a lot of women of color face in this industry, a lot of people of color in general. But as someone who produced a research study on intersectionality in the music business, I could say that the numbers speak to women of color experiencing feeling undervalued by way of being overworked and underpaid, and the mental stress that that takes when you, like you said, have your bills to pay, but you don't have a moment to really just sit down and take in all that you're doing. This industry is one that it's competitive because people know that they can change people's lives in the music industry using music. And so that's not like a little task. That's not a little feat. Music is a global thing. It's something that transcends barriers. And so if you can make a living in this business, you really are in a place where you're helping to transform the paradigm of culture. So it's a huge undertaking. Even if you're, just someone on the back end like I was, in rights and royalty management, having to pay people consistently on time, make sure that things are accurate, to the penny, because people can audit you. It's a big responsibility. So at that time where I was undergoing some mental stress, just because I was dealing with a large catalog, over 100 clients that I had to pay. Yeah, so it's I realized I needed to take a step back and evaluate um, first how this was going to help me in the grand scheme of what I want for my career, and second how I can alleviate some of that stress, and maybe pursue a different role that'll help me take some of that responsibility off my shoulders.
Good for you, because that's a testament. Because sometimes we just, like you said, we get so, I guess, inundated with, I gotta make it, I gotta make it. But if you ain't here to make it, you're
Right.
you're
You're
not
doing
doing
yourself a disservice.
exactly,
And the
exactly.
thing too is that it's a lot of pressure to succeed in this industry, because a lot of times you only get one chance to prove yourself. So, a major loss, by way of not paying someone what they're due, or not collecting all of the royalties that this person is due, or misreporting, things like that, it can really uh, I don't want to say put you on a blacklist in the industry, but word travels quickly, and it is a very small business to be in. So, and we don't really get a chance to really sit down with what we've accomplished in this business either. We're constantly on the move. What's the next thing? So it can be very stressful.
Very, very. So it's talking about, I'm thinking this is probably a stress reliever. Let's get into your book, Getting the Bag. So
Mhm.
give the audience a little brief overview of your book.
Sure, getting a bag, royalties management in today's modern music economy, it's a mouthful. But I wanted to make sure that people understood that this wasn't just about going out and performing or meeting people. It's about really taking ownership of your creativity. I wrote this as a labor of love for the BIPOC community. I feel like we take on traditionally the front facing roles in this business, the creative roles, being talent or talent adjacent. And because of that, the industry tends to tends to take advantage of us, our lack of understanding about where the money is actually coming from. And so, as someone who has worked with the money for 15 years, this is my way of basically saying, hey, here's how we can actually get ahead in this business. Here's how we can, make sure that we're not being taken advantage of, that we have the language to communicate what our expectations are for our what we're producing, our craft, and also to give you insight into new technology and how to manage it on your own. It's one thing to know, okay, publishing, merchandise, sync, like these are, words that are thrown around out there in the world, but also how do you manage that? So once you have the income, how do you make sure that you have the systems available to to be your own business and be your own boss? And so I give insight into what we call rights management systems, things that are available to run your own business. Also about like new emerging technologies, whether it's AI, whether it's NFTs, whether it's, cryptocurrency, how all of this is going to transform our industry and how to get ahead of it.
So, and I have questions around that too.
Mhm.
Um, Again, this business is not for the weak. It's
Right.
definitely. So now we have a recording studio, where we deal with quite a few artists, and because, and, which put us on a kind of like a different side of the business. But when we
Mhm.
wrote and produced our first play, and then owning the rights to a couple of the songs that were part of the play, it put us on more on the business side, and which we like quickly saw how complicated things could get,
Mhm.
and some things you didn't know that you can miss, and then it's just all the different rights and licensing. So for an independent artist, what are some of the things that they should know as it relates to your royalties, rights, and licensing, or some key takeaways that they definitely need to concentrate on in your book?
I think first of all, I think every person in general should know to have a team. Everyone can't do everything, right? So that's one thing. To know that there are different roles that people play in this industry. They have specific expertise, and you need to tap into that. As a performer, a lot of times we think we have to take on the whole world ourselves, and we might not be able to afford to hire a lawyer or hire an accountant of people who do know these things. But I think it's important to invest in that. Even if, you know, there's plenty of platforms out there you can just tap into people's expertise on an hourly basis and just allow them to do that. With all that being said, ownership means that you're the primary rights holder for the content that you're producing. There's metadata associated with your content, and that makes it easier for outside affiliates to gain access to your information so that they know who they're paying, and who they need to go through for those approvals. Metadata is anything from like the name of the song, the people that were involved in the creation, the splits, who are the ones that are administering those works. So if you're part of a bigger publishing entity, the publishing name, it could be everything from the timing of the song to where that song is approved to be used. It's like the territories of the world that it's being used. Um, that information is so pivotal for people to know who to pay, right? So that's number one. I would also say that as a producer, as a rights holder, songwriter, it's important to collaborate. If you're looking for opportunities to expand beyond what your current situation is, whether it's just I have this one song that I'm promoting, make sure that you're reaching across the table as much as you're trying to reach up, right? Meet with those people who are actually also creating in the same lane as you, and that way you can utilize each other's resources to get a leg up and to continue to build your audience. So those are some of the key takeaways that I would say.
Okay, and I totally agree. We get together, and not enough, but I guess we need to do it more often and just share information because we all out here, like you said, trying to find that pie in the sky. Um,
Yeah,
so I totally agree because most of us didn't come from, especially people of color didn't come from a lot of money, so we don't have
right.
those resources. So it's going to take all of us working together because there's enough out here for everybody to get theirs. But if we work
Absolutely.
together, we can definitely, build that village, build that community so everybody can eat, is what I say.
Absolutely. And that's where I felt, part of why I started my holdings company, Fresh and Sassy Productions, was to create an ecosystem of safe spaces for women of color by way of a podcast, by way of a research study, by way of a nonprofit organization. And the tech company is also housed under all of that because we have a tendency, unfortunately, to look at each other as competition. And I think just society puts us in a place where we're having to outshine each other or try to outperform each other. And so, and I wouldn't say that it's necessarily us doing it consciously because I think deep down we do really want to help each other. succeed. And we do understand the power of numbers and working together. But we're conditioned to think of each other as a threat. So, because society basically says there's only room for one of us in this position, so we're threatened by the next person that does come in. So, what I would offer to that is just what you said about reaching across the table, being more deliberate about helping each other out. And the best way to do that is to build our own system, build our own platforms, build our own businesses, because as we're working in the corporate space or in a system, it's not necessarily catered to us. It's not even built for us to succeed, really. So, for us to be able to collaborate and work together, we have to build our own things.
Agreed. Agreed. Now we touched on music technology company because you do have a tech company.
Mhm.
Um, you talked about in your book leveraging your technology and your digital platforms. Can you talk more in depth about that?
Sure. So, Encore Music Tech Solutions was built last year after I had spent probably the last 3 years working for Empire Publishing, building their rights management systems. And as a way to kind of explore entrepreneurship and get my feet wet in the independent space, I started my tech company, and on Empire then became my client, my first major client. And so the intentionality behind Encore is to educate folks on rights and royalties, the importance again of ownership, um, utilizing our platform to either help companies build their own publishing entities, help them to build the technology to make sure that they're managing their rights and royalties properly, and to manage their client management platforms. Um, and to educate again, to bring more awareness to tech being the forefront of the industry and how it's challenging the way that business models are currently being set. I don't know if you guys, you sound like you're the type of people that would be up to date on current events, in the music industry. And so right now there's conversation around Spotify changing their royalty model, right? So if you're not understanding how the technology is driving all of these major decisions, then unfortunately the BIPOC community is disadvantaged in that way. We are kind of the afterthought of what happens on a larger scale. So Encores and the book is a way to make sure that we are being, up to date. We're staying active in this space as well as we are in the creative space.
Okay. Staying in the know because, like I said, technology it is crucial and key because I find folks. Let me get your opinion as far as what are some of the challenges of artists are facing today. I see some the ones that I work with. Like I said, I know you need a team, but sometimes you got to still do some things yourself. And what I find it challenging is they want so you have the creators, but they don't want to take on that next effort of putting it on a distro kid per se, getting it out there, and then making sure that you can market it. So let me get your
Mhm.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think just like any other person in this world, you have to think of yourself as a business. You have to learn how to market yourself, how to self promote. And unfortunately, that's not something we learn in school. It takes a lot of practice just being out in the world and showing up authentically and knowing what your story is so that you can market yourself. Yes, utilizing these platforms is integral. I will also say that one of the biggest hurdles that a performer artist might have in utilizing these platforms is not knowing how to take full advantage of the services that are offered. So it's not just about signing up. It's not just about uploading your music, but utilizing the other services that are available to you, really getting in touch with the client managers of those platforms and saying, how can I move this song to, one of the playlists? You have connections there. How do I get my song in the hands of a sync agent? Now that you have it in house, how can I utilize those services? Do you know of any performances that I can participate in, so to get myself on the stage and in front of people. Like there are so many different ways that you can utilize these platforms and the services, but again, like I just feel like there's that disconnect. A lot of performers don't know how to do that or to do that, in other words. And I'll just to go back to the technology element. I do a lot of speaking engagements at conferences where I am the only person of color, woman on the panel. And one of the more recent conversations I had was at Music Biz that's held in Nashville, Tennessee every year. And the conversation was about how technology is changing the landscape of the music industry. They brought up Grimes as an example of how new revenue streams are being built up with the use of AI. Right? Grimes is an international artist. She's Elon Musk's baby mama, if you will. She's got a child with Elon Musk,
Okay.
and but she's an artist, and she said she was going to split the profits 50-50 with fans who are using the likeness of her likeness in music, right? And I'm like, that's wonderful, right? That means that she's allowing her fans to use AI and use her voice to create the music, and she's going to split those profits. But everyone can't afford to do that.
Hmm.
Everyone cannot afford to split profits, and especially the Black and Brown community. This is how we feed our families. We don't have the safety net that Grimes has, but if we're sharing our profits and can't make ends meet, like she can lean on the fact that she has the support of Elon Musk, who's a billionaire. There's other things too, like we're building AI as a way to usher in new profit models, new ways of creating music. But what happens when you don't have Black and Brown people at the front of the development of this technology? AI is definitely culturally biased, and so it tends to disenfranchise groups of people when you don't have us at the forefront of this technology. One example I'll give is FN Mecca. FN Mecca was an artificial intelligent artist released by Capitol Records last year. It was a racially ambiguous artist that was touting the N word in its lyrics, glorifying street culture, perpetuating racial stereotypes, and worst off to me, it was also highlighting police brutality. And so, when you don't have Black and Brown people making the decisions about the technology, these kinds of things will happen when you have these tone deaf artists being promoted. Um, so that was my little rant about technology and why it's important for us to be at the helm of it. Um, but in terms of the artist and how they're using technology, I think there's so many different platforms available to them. They just have to be very
Intentional.
diligent at making sure they're using all of the services that are available.
Agreed. Agreed. Because I noticed on one, girl, you got so much stuff. On one of your websites, you had a AI of yourself talking.
Yeah.
I was like,
Canva is
yeah.
interesting. I put together a little speech or whatever, or a little introduction to the platform, and I had it create this AI version of myself. And I was a little perplexed because they had all these different voice types that you could use, but they didn't have one that sounded like a Black woman. And we all know what a Black woman sounds like. You could tell the difference in our tonality, our inflections. Like we know what we sound like. So I had to choose one that didn't necessarily sound like me, but I just thought it was really cool to kind of like, from a branding perspective, say,
Yeah.
okay, I know how to use AI in this way.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, okay, that's we. I just had a event where we was actually, I had a panel where we was talking about AI and just trying to get people more comfortable because it's here to stay.
Yes. Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
It's
That's
not
for
going
sure.
anywhere.
Cat's out the bag. Hmm.
Yes, just to get more familiar with it, and it was a great event. We actually going to have to do a part two because we couldn't get to everything.
Hmm.
But yeah, I noticed that. I said, okay, I see you.
We're doing everything we can over here. I feel like the problem that I see a lot is that we're not aware of how much technology is playing a part in this industry. As much as we like to use it on the creative side to like create music or to assist us with our songwriting process, or to there's platforms available where AI is being used to like to tweak the sound and make sure that it's mixed properly and all of that. But AI is being used in so many other ways that we need to be at the head of those tables. We need to make it look cool to be a nerd in this industry.
At the minimum, at least be familiar with it. So totally agree.
Right.
And then talk about more technology because you mentioned blockchain, and I know blockchain and then
Hmm.
NFTs, which I still don't have quite a handle on. But what other, I guess, developments or trends or whatever do you think are coming? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a big advocate for the use of blockchain as a way to create more transparency and to give access to information and platforms to the BIPOC community. I mean, I'm very central to us. Like, I'm really trying to get us to be the ones to benefit from these platforms. Blockchain is kind of like everything is everything that's transacted lives on the blockchain. My label that I'm building the technology to power currently is using smart contracts, um, which lives on the blockchain, which means anything that's done on behalf of the talent that is part of our ecosystem, anyone will be able to see what's been done on their behalf. And that helps you kind of measure their progress over the span of their careers. So even if they're not part of our ecosystem, then a manager would be able to say, "Oh, I see that this artist has had development, or they've had these marketing services provided to them, or they've been able to get on this tour." And so the problem with anything that's transparent in this industry kind of it doesn't necessarily benefit the major corporations that exist out there, right? So there's an argument to be had on both sides. How much information do you really want to be available to the public? But I think we're moving in that direction anyway. So I think it's important for us to be the ones to kind of push that narrative. Um, with all the other technology, NFTs, I know it was a big hot topic over the last couple of years. It's kind of like mitigated, but it's still something to be considered. NFTs are it's short for non-fungible tokens, um, which means it's basically a digital asset. Okay, it doesn't live in the tangible world. It's a digital asset that people can own on the blockchain, right? So you own this asset and you can trade or sell it however you'd like. And over time, that the value of that is supposed to increase. Um, so, for something like a copyright, for instance, a song that is being registered, we can also manifest that as an NFT and say that, okay, now that this lives in the blockchain, this copyright now is gaining value over time. And so that's how NFTs are being used also as like merchandise. So that's probably what we see mostly now is like people selling NFT chains and NFT whatever kind of merchandise you can think of an avatar or t-shirts or things that your avatar is wearing, like things that are NFT. It's just an asset that lives on the blockchain. Um, there's a lot of other things, but
Yeah, now that's one of the worlds that is like, oh, that's a lot. Just trying to understand it, But yeah, I get it. So let me switch gears a little bit. So you have a record label,
yes,
and I know that you kind of pride yourself of making sure that the artists, for your record label, maintain their rights, and you guys are a partner. Now,
yeah,
what made you take this approach versus, like you said, the traditional labels where
right,
they take everything?
right. Well, okay, so 10 years ago, I started my first endeavor as an entrepreneur by launching one of the first artist services at the time called Broken Records. It allowed artists to maintain their rights and royalties by implementing services based on their budget and their needs. Now there's a whole lot of artist services platforms available out there. So I wish I had stuck with it, but it was a lesson for me on timing, being everything. With that being said, so Saucy Records is basically a revamp of Broken Records, the
Mhm.
platform that I started 10 years ago, with the focus on empowering women of color, because the majority of women of color in this industry are being molded into a box and having to promote certain things that they may not feel comfortable doing, or unfortunately, this is a male dominated industry, and so hypersexuality is the thing that's promoted the most when it comes to women, and specifically women of color. So this was a platform where women of color can utilize our tools and our services to send the message that they want, promote themselves how they want to authentically. We are using technology. Um, our technology is called Harmony. It matches artists to service providers or vendors based on their budget and their service needs. So if you're an artist looking for, sorry,
No, I'll say okay.
uh, if you're an artist looking for artist development services, or you're creating an EP, you might want to, instead of having to do all the work yourself, which was one of the things that we mentioned earlier, you'll hire someone who has that expertise. Most of these vendors are similar to myself, people who have worked in the corporate space in the music industry, worked with some VIP clients and started their own initiatives, right? Started their own agencies. And so they have tools and resources to execute those services on your behalf. So Saucy Records is not a traditional label, so we don't own your rights. We might collect royalties on your behalf, but we don't take royalties. That's not how we make, that's not our business model. um, we're a blend between artist services and traditional label, in that artists, they implement the services based on budget and their needs, but they have access to vetted industry professionals who can execute those services on their behalf.
Yeah, I liked your motto. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool because it's like it's all you're really kind of watching out for the artists.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's like a complete system where if you're a vendor, let's say you have your own talent agency or marketing agency, you would sign up as a vendor to the platform, and the artists get funneled to you if you meet their budget requirements and their service requirements. And as an artist, as if you're invited to use the platform, because it is an invite only platform, once you're invited, you get matched to people who are now part of your team. This is how you're building your team. So it kind of helps both sides of the coin.
Definitely, I love it. I love it. All right, Juke Joint Foundations,
Yes.
nonprofit.
You've
So
joined foundation.
you
Uh-huh.
have the Atlanta chapter. I was looking around. I just
It's international. So we have members based out of Atlanta, New York, LA, Florida. We have some in the UK as well. Um, Juke Joint Foundation. Okay, so let me back up for a second. I'm gonna kind of go through each of the companies, because there's a one led to the other, which led to the other. Okay,
I
so
understand.
Fresh and Sassy Productions, again, is the holdings company that houses all of them. I started Pub Royalty Queen podcast as a way to build my network with other women of color in the music industry, and as a way to just check myself and make sure I wasn't bugging, like that I wasn't experiencing all these different hardships, in a bubble. And it turns out that the majority of women of color in this industry do face some of the same things, whether it's isolation or being underpaid or being overworked or discredited, all these different things. And so, as someone who's dealt with data for the majority of my career, I was like, how do I legitimize these anecdotes? that I've been hearing and that I've experienced myself. So I produced a research study called A Seat at the Table. A Seat at the Table is the first research study dedicated to intersectionality in the music industry. And I was able to survey over 100 women of color in the music industry about their experiences navigating a white male dominated space. And what we learned from the research study is that the majority of women of color enter the music industry under unpaid internships. They lack the access and relationships to expand their careers. The majority of us do not have mentorship, even though that can increase our bottom line by over $40,000 over the span of our careers. We experience being discredited, and because we don't have the support that we need in the corporate space, we don't tend to advocate for ourselves for better pay once we do have those opportunities. So a lot of times, in order for us to expand and to grow and to challenge ourselves, we either leave to the next company or we start our own businesses.
Mhm.
And so, it's no surprise that women of color are the highest rate of entrepreneurs in America. And so after having all this information and presenting it on international stages like South by Southwest and Music Biz Conference and Reeperbahn Festival in Germany and Future Music Forum in Barcelona, I decided to start a nonprofit organization so that we can build our own community and then we can have access to the funding we need to not only start our own music companies, but to allow the next generation of women of color to gain access into this business by way of mentorship and scholarship. So, Juke Joint Foundation is a nonprofit organization aimed at providing resources to women of color in the music industry via scholarships, grants, and access to music biz related events. It's also a way for the industry to kind of put their money where their mouth is because a lot of times they'll say they want to hire more women of color. They just don't know where to find us, which is such a
Like we're
a lame excuse. Yeah, we've been here. We're just, invisible to larger industries. So this is a way for them to basically, you know, tap into the resources that they say they want, but don't know how to have access to it. So that's cheap joint.
so if you need somebody in Atlanta still,
Yes.
because
Sign
I'm
up on jukejointfoundation.org/membership. We're in the process of planning our annual gala to raise funds for paying off student loan debt for qualified individuals.
awesome, awesome. All right, so let me ask you this: what has been your biggest reward and your biggest challenging, you know, doing it on your own as an entrepreneur, coming out of that, corporate side and just like, hey, I'm gonna do it.
My biggest reward, I would say, is like more of a personal thing. In order for you to step out and really bet on yourself, you have to really believe in yourself to do it. It's like a very courageous thing to go from corporate, something very structured, something that is like your so you're having to speak to someone, be directed by someone, right?
Mhm.
Um, and you're not responsible for how the business runs or makes money necessarily. You're in it to provide a service to that company by way of your skills and your knowledge. But to then utilize all of that, your network, your resources, your talent, and your skills to do your own thing, it does require a lot of grit. It does require consistency, discipline, a extensive belief in yourself that even in your darkest hours, you'll prevail, right? And that you need those dark moments and those challenges to grow. So I'll say for me, my biggest thing that I've accomplished is believing in myself enough to step out and do what I needed to do for myself and to follow my heart. Um, and by way of doing that, there have been so many blessings.
Mm.
Like I said, Empire was my first client. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that for a lot of people, right? It doesn't happen with your former employer, let alone, a major player in the game co-signs what you're doing as a business owner. So now that different platforms, because I'm not having to like prove myself. There's already sufficient appointment. Now, um, I will say, hearing a book is definitely a proud moment.
Mhm.
I knew at some point I was going to write a book. I didn't know it was going to be about this, which is like rights and royalties isn't necessarily a sexy thing. Technology isn't necessarily sexy, but I think to utilize the platform that I'm on to speak directly to the people that I care about these things, um, and to say it in a way that you can understand it without it being so dense and heavy. I
Yeah.
think that's something to be proud of, and so I'm happy that you got the book because that means everything to be able to spread the information, um, and empower you and your platform. Um, and one of the more challenging things I've experienced,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the ebbs and flows of entrepreneurship. You have some one month you're making thousands and thousands of dollars, and then the next month you're making nothing. So like, it's the ups and downs of it, and sometimes it can be very stressful. You're having to motivate yourself consistently, and so that's can be tough. And on the other hand, I work primarily to empower women of color, which is a very niche sector or demographic, and because of that, it kind of goes back to what we were speaking to earlier with the barrel mentality. I feel like a lot of times as we're trying to make these, or as I'm trying to make these strides, it's harder for people to connect because either they're wanting to do the same thing and so they don't want to work with you, because they want to do exactly what you're doing, or uh, they see it as they're not ready to do what you're doing, and so instead of working with you, they decide to pull back their energy and their support. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges is getting us to really embrace and empower each other.
Yes. I agree. Totally agree. I still straddle the fence, so I still have a full time job, but yet we're still entrepreneur. So I
Yeah,
get is that's still scared to pull that trigger on the other side.
yeah, yeah. But so that's why the technology, at least for Software Records, is vital because it's a safe space to land if you are wanting to start your own thing. At least now you have, I wouldn't say guaranteed clients because you may have services that don't fit their budget, but at the very least, there are some clients that you can tap, a talent pool that you can tap into, and you maintain your earnings of it. We take about a 20% finder's fee, but
Okay.
you maintain, the rest of what's being earned there.
Okay. So last question. What's the best advice you've received and the best advice you've given to others?
Best advice I received was from my supervisor when I worked at Cobalt Music Publishing. Her name is Jeanette Perez. She said to me, "Closed mouths don't get fed."
Yep.
And as someone who I'm an Aries, I like to do a lot of things independently. And this has been one of the biggest challenges for me as an entrepreneur because you can't do everything yourself, so you have to ask for help. Um, but that is vital. Even people who want to help don't know how to help you or that you even need help until you say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, can you do this for me?" Or "I need a favor," or "This is what I need to move forward." So yeah, closed mouths don't get fed. And don't assume that people, that I think that's the main thing is like, don't assume that people know how to show up for you.
That's true.
You have
That's,
to open your mouth and express that.
yes.
Um,
Communication is.
and
I like the overcome.
exactly, exactly. And the best advice that I give to people is that you're one of one. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Your journey is completely different than the next person. You have no idea what people are going through. And, I think that we all have something special to offer to this world. We just need to figure out what that thing is and pursue that with vigor. Um, I have tunnel vision. That's the only reason why I'm able to do the things that I'm doing is because I don't look to the side of me or I don't look behind. I look forward at the vision. And I don't care if there's other people doing what I'm doing. They can't do it like me. So that's I think that's what all of us have to have is that knowing that we are special and that what we have to bring to this world is different than the next person.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. So we're gonna I appreciate you definitely,
Thank you.
and we need to talk more because you have so much
Yes.
to give, and and help especially the women of color because we
Yes.
we got to get out there, but it's a two-way street, so we got to do our part.
Absolutely.
We got to do
Yes.
our part too.
And
So
what would you say is the biggest challenge for us as a community, not just women of color, but like for Black and Brown people, like what do we need to work on in order to create the spaces that help us to succeed?
I would say trusting each other to work together because it's so much of like you said, it's like I'm got my foot in the door. I'm going to be the only one, so be gone. Or
Mm,
I went through all this struggle to get where I need to get, so you're gonna have to do it too. It's just
hmm.
that sharing of information, working together. I think for me, that's been one of the biggest hurdles because it's like I understand that my path is my path. And it's like I'm not
Right.
trying to take anything from you. I'm really trying to learn so I can go on my
Mm,
path. And it's like I think
hmm.
the more I learn from you, the more we learn together. I'm highlighting you.
Yes.
Some people don't think that way.
What's funny is that like I think competition is a good thing. You get what I'm saying? Like I don't ever think of it as I got to bring this person down. No, it's more like iron sharpens iron. So like if that person ends up succeeding doing something that you know, or we're meeting the same task or we're trying to accomplish the same thing, but they're able to do it in this way, what can I learn from that? How can
Yes,
I collaborate with that person so that we both win?
and bring
Um,
the next person and
is
reach out.
that's the other thing. Keep the
Yep.
door open. Like I've experienced this where I want to say report to another woman of color, but there'll be another woman of color in a position of power, and as they're seeing me, in my efforts to promote women of color or to bring technology to the table, they might feel like I'm coming for their spot, and so or to make it difficult to reach that place instead of saying, you know what, two is better than one, or here's what I've learned along the path that could help you because I want you to be better than me. I want you to be better than me. And I think we have a really tough time with that. But I spoke with the psychotherapist about this bigger issue as a community. And the question I asked was, how do we get out of our own way by putting
Mm,
up those social barriers with each other, by gatekeeping from each other? And she said, we have to create our own systems because the systems that we operate in were under white supremacy and weren't necessarily rooted for us to win. So in order for all of us to win, we have to start thinking of ourselves as our own entities, and that's the only way. So hopefully that empowers the listeners and viewers to, you know, take baby steps towards their own independence.
yes, but still keep that door to working together and helping each other. So yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. So we're gonna get into some celebrating some Black excellence.
Yes.
Wait on my there we go. So every week we recognize and we celebrate the achievements and contributions African Americans have made to this country. Today we celebrate the life of Richard Roundtree, actor and model, who was best known for his portrayal of private detective John Shaft. Richard started his career as a model for Fashion Fair back in 1963. Then he went on to do plays, which led to his breakout role as Leading Man in Shaft in 1971, and then on to four sequels. He went on to have an amazing career as a television shows and in movies, to include a returning role of John Shaft in Shaft and a new sequel in 2000 and 2019 opposite Samuel Jackson and Jesse T. Usher. So Richard Roundtree, he passed away this week. So today we
Mm.
salute you and your contributions to making this country great. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
All right, announcements. Night of Expression. We have so I'm having a showcase Night of Expression on November 18th, where we're having some amazing performing artists, recording hip hop artists Preston Rose and K Dyke, R&B Janishia J, and Platinum Award recorded artist Pam Olivia, formerly from the group Five. We have a spoken word artist, Mr. Freewill, and you know this is going to be an amazing treat. So tickets are only $10, advance at the 15 at the door. So go to terradoentertainment.com/events and get your tickets. So, and that is our show. But before we close, we need to pay some bills. So here's a word from our sponsor, Terradome Entertainment. Terradome Entertainment. We turn your fear of dreaming into amazing realities. If your dream is to become a photographer, we have a nice intimate photo studio just for you. If you want to record that next hit song or do voiceover work, we have a state of the art studio also for you. If you want to professionally record your own podcast, well, we have that too. Check us out at www.terradomeentertainment.com. We are the only ones to turn your fear of dreaming into amazing realities. All right. Shout out to dude over there, the producer extraordinaire for some of those beats. If you have any questions or comments, email us at info@terradomeent.com. That's info@terradomeent.com. Final words, DJ Talented.
Uh, there's a lot of words that I have with all of the information that was given. If you're an artist, producer, engineer, anything dealing with the music game, you should have been listening to this conversation. Those are my final words.
All right, Miss Janishia Jones, what are your final words?
Final words. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure. I look forward to continuing building with you guys as well. And for anyone looking to find me, there are several platforms, so depending on what you want to find, So Saucy Records, sosaucyrecords.com, jukejointfoundation.org for the nonprofit, pubroyaltyqueen.com for the podcast and for the research study. And that's it. Or encoremusic.tech. That's the tech company.
All right. So, our real last quote of the day: don't be pushed around by fears in your mind, be led by the dreams in your heart. So join us live every Saturday at noon for the Power Hour with the Real As People Society crew here on Terradome Entertainment Radio, and catch the replay of this show and other shows on terradomeentradio.com or on all your podcast apps. You can hit us up at IG at Power Hour _raps _crew. I am your president, Ms. Entertainment. You can contact me at MIZZ _entertainment _ATL. And my chief entertainment officer.
DJ Talented _1.
All right, Mr. Janishia Jones. How can folks contact you?
At Pub Royalty Queen on Instagram.
All righty. And I leave you all with this as I do every show. Be kind to each other, love one another, keep God first. Thank you for joining. Stay safe, and we're out.